Welcome to today's Cocktail Breeze. I'm Ariel Nechemia, and today I'm going to walk you through how to make dumplings. As some of you may know, I'm Chinese American, having grown up between Beijing and California. And this is my family's recipe for making pork cabbage and pork chive dumplings. For making dumplings, we'll need flour, ground pork, scallions, cabbage, chives, ginger, as well as oyster sauce, cooking wine, soy sauce, and vinegar. Traditionally in China, the act of making food is just as important socially as eating it. So for a party, we'd all gather around together to pitch in and make dumplings. So over here, I have about 6 or 7 cups of flour, and I'm going to dump it into this bin and slowly add water to it. This isn't an exact science, but what you're looking for is the exact consistency. So as you add water into it, you want to keep on working it around to try to prevent it from forming a big clump. Because it's a little bit too soggy or a little too wet, I added just a little bit of flour to help balance it out a little bit more. And in fact, that might even be too much flour, which then again, I'll just add a little bit more water to it. So as you see right here, it's looking just a little bit dry because I added just a bit too much flour. So I'm just going to add a couple drops of water, and really a couple drops is all it takes. And then at the same time, I want to try to get all of the flour, the rest of the little bits around the edge of the bowl as well, to make one big clump. So this right here is pretty much the perfect consistency. You see, it still feels wet to the touch, and despite touching or whatever, it's not really sticking to me at all. And this is exactly what we're looking for. At this point, what we want to do is to cover it with some paper towels or rags that are damp, just to prevent it from drying out while we move on to work in the fillings. At this point, I have about 1.5 pounds of ground pork in each of the bowls, as well as half a head of cabbage in one of them. I also have roughly half a ginger root diced up, the same with about 6 scallions, and a bundle, roughly 3 Stop and Shop packages worth of chives, all diced up. Now what we want to do is to split the ginger root in half, and for the ginger roots you do not have to peel it, but you want to split it in half and divide it equally. And it's the same deal with the scallions as well. Now, of course, for the chives, what we don't want to do is to put it in the one with the lettuce. We want to put chives in its own separate bowl. Now for the sauces, what we want to do is to put a 1/4 cup of oyster sauce in both of them. And we also want to put a 1/4 cup of soy sauce in each of these. Now finally, we want to add some cooking wine. The cooking wine, you don't want to put that much. Perhaps just like 1/8 of a cup even in each. Now that's all done, we want to just start mixing. I'm rolling down a rebel kind of road, it's my ride, it's alright. So another pro tip with the cabbage is once you dice it up, you actually want to try your best to squeeze all the water and the juices out of it. Now we want to go back to the dough that we had sitting out, and what we want is to have a nice clean wooden cutting board, or even plastic works as well. And we just want to cover it with a little bit of flour before we start anything else. I'm grabbing just a handful of this dough, and I'm making sure to cover it up again. And I want to roll it out to be kind of like the shape of a sausage. Then I can cover it up with a little bit of flour again. and we take our knife and we want to cut it into about 1 inch or maybe even 2-inch pieces. The larger you cut it, the easier it will be afterwards. And then you could use your palm to kind of press it out, press it flat a little bit, but you don't want it too flat. And you want most of it to actually be thicker in the middle. But since we don't have a rolling pin, we're just going to use any bottle. You could use just a bottle of wine or anything like that, and it works perfectly well as well. So again, we're going to make sure that there's enough flour on the board or else it will stick. And you could even put some more flour on the bottle or the rolling pin. And you want to hold it in one hand and the rolling pin with the other. And you just want to push it towards the middle, just a little bit, and then rotate. So this is one of those things that once you get good at it, it becomes a lot faster. And you just want to keep on working it around into a circle. And as you can see, it's just a little bit thicker in the middle still. And that will help prevent it from falling apart. But this, I would say, is pretty good. And typically, at this point, you'd have an army of people helping you. So at this point, you want to grab a little bit of the filling with a fork or chopsticks or whatever, put some in the middle, and you want to press it down a little bit. And this is actually easier with a chopstick because I'll show you why in a second. Now, you want to grab one edge of it and fold it over and press it together. At this point, if it doesn't want to stick together, you could grab a little bit of water and then just put a little bit on the edge. That will just prevent the flour from preventing it to stick together. And some people like to just go right down the middle, but the problem is the dumplings won't stand up by itself anymore once you set it down. So let me demonstrate actually. So this is how it will look like if you were to just put it down the middle versus how my family does it back home is to actually pinch it together from the side. Almost you want it to be somewhat crescent shaped. And that way, once you set it down, the dumpling will actually want to stand up by itself a little bit better. Versus if it were to be totally flat, it'll just get knocked over. And trust me, it makes a huge difference. That's one of the dumplings that's done. What we like to do for parties is actually to clean up a bunch of counters or tables because we don't have enough large trays at home. And once we cleaned it up, we'll put saran wrap over it and then we'll line up the dumplings individually one by one. And we have something that's simulating an assembly line going on, where you'll have a couple of people rolling out the skins and a couple of people filling in the fillings for the different flavors that we have. And eventually, once they're all ready, we'll start cooking. So here's another technique to actually pinching it to just make it a little bit faster. So I put some on the skin, and of course the same part, or the first part is the same as always. You fold the top over, and then you could just grab 2 hands, and you want to put the end of it inside this corner of your thumb, and then you just pinch it together. And the same deal with the other one. And once you have it a little bit bigger, you could just do 2 at the same time, both hands at the same time. Pinch it together, and it's the right shape, and it will sit right there, and that one's done.
It's a lot better than mine.
Takes practice. You could also play around with just pinching it together. Some people like to do pleats on it, and it looks really nice. At this point, you want to have a pot of water boiling and slowly just drop them in. Try not to burn yourself. You don't want to put too much where you're just crowding the dumplings together. And as soon as you drop them in, just stir it. Especially try to get the bottom because they tend to like to stick to the bottom. How you gauge how long to cook for is, first off, you want to start off with a boiling pot of water. And after you add the dumplings, wait until the water boils again. Then add a glass of cold water, just room temperature water. Once it boils again, add another cup of room temperature to water. Once it boils that third time, then you're done, then you can fish it up. In China, we actually have a saying that goes, 原汤化原食, which means that the soup or the broth from making the dumplings will help you digest, will help dissolve any sort of like rocks or impurities or whatever inside your body, inside your system. So that's why usually at home, even after you make noodles, for example, not just dumplings, people would get a cup or a bowl of this broth and then they would just sip on it after their meal. So over here I have a little bit of vinegar and I've added a little bit of this Chinese chili sauce or chili bean sauce in order to add just a little bit of extra spicy flavor if you like it. And you could also just crush some garlic and stick it in the vinegar as well, and it really does add a lot of extra flavor. So once you fish it out, you want to be careful because they're super hot. In fact, you could break them apart to help them cool down a little bit. And you're not really eating dumplings if you don't burn yourself at least once. So. Oh, holy shit. Thank you so much for tuning in with us today, and I hope you get to enjoy some delicious dumplings. Join us in the Weekend Workshop series for a live Q&A with Mark Towell and Charlie Enright, co-skippers of 11th Hour Racing in the next edition of the Ocean Race. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you next time. This is Ariel signing off.